understand why we celebrate Independence Day.
It is because our country became free from British rule that day.
British rule? Please tell me what happened.
The freedom fighters such as Mahatma Gandhi started many movements to cast out the British. Let me tell all about it. The impact of First World War 1914 AD 1918 AD was spreading across the European countries. In the meanwhile, Mahatma Gandhi, who returned from South Africa in 1915, was inspired by the nationalist movements started by the different countries and thought it to be the right time to start a movement against the British rule in India. Why most national movements started during World War I? During World War I, many important positions in the British government were transferred to the Indians. This helped in making the roots of British government weak. Mahatma Gandhi emphasized on the power of truth and need to search for truth. This movement came to be known as Satyagraha. Without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, a Satyagrahi could win the battle through non-violence. How do you think one could win a battle without violence? Mahatma Gandhi believed that people, including the oppressors, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept truth through the use of violence. There was a huge support from the people for this movement. Emboldened with this success, Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha against the proposed British Act 1919. In 1919, the British government passed Rowlatt Act, under which the government had the authority and power to arrest people and keep them in prisons without trial if they were suspected with the charge of terrorism. Rallies were organized in various cities, workers went on strike in railway workshops, and shops closed down. Alarmed by the popular upsurge, the British administration decided to clamp down on nationalists. This became serious on April 13th, when a large crowd gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh, either to protest against the government's new repressive measures or to attend the annual Baisakhi fair. Meanwhile, General Dyer entered the area, blocked the exit points and opened fire on the crowd, killing hundreds. His objective was to create a feeling of terror and awe in Satyagrahis. The agitated crowd revolted against the British government, who were terrorized by imposing brutal repression. Seeing violence spreading, Mahatma Gandhi called off the movement. Mahatma Gandhi later started thinking of a more broad-based movement. He needed Muslims and Hindus to work together, and he found the opportunity when the Khilafat Committee was set to defend Khalifa's temporal powers. Gandhiji saw this as an opportunity to bring Muslims under the umbrella of a unified national movement. At the Calcutta session of the Congress in September 1920, he convinced other leaders to start a new movement in support of Khilafat as well as for Swaraj. This movement was known as Non-Cooperation Movement. It aimed to resist British occupation of India through non-violent means. Protesters would refuse to buy British goods, adopt the use of local handicrafts, picket liquor shops, and try to uphold the Indian values of honor and integrity. This non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in January 1921, and various social groups participated in this movement, each with its own specific aspiration. In the town, foreign goods and clothes were boycotted, liquor shops picketed, thousands of students left government-controlled schools and colleges, headmasters and teachers resigned, and lawyers gave up their practice. As the movement spread in 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted, and grain hoards were taken over. In many places, the name of Mahatma was being invoked to sanction all action and aspirations. From the cities, the non-cooperation movement spread to the countryside. It drew attention to the struggles of peasants and tribal, which were developing in different parts of India in the years after the war. Tribal peasants interpreted the message of Mahatma Gandhi in different way, and the rebels of Gudam Hills, Andhra Pradesh, attacked police stations, attempted to kill British officials, and carried on warfare for achieving Swaraj. Is this what Gandhiji had in mind when he started the movement? Gandhiji felt the movement was turning violent in many places and satyagrahis needed to be properly trained before they would be ready for mass struggles. Eventually, he called off the movement. Set up in response to the nationalist movement, a statutory commission under Sir John Simon was to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. However, when the Simon Commission arrived in India in 1928, it was greeted with the slogan, "Go back Simon." In 1930, in order to help free India from British control, Mahatma Gandhi proposed a non-violent march protesting the British salt tax, continuing Gandhi's pleas for civil disobedience. The salt tax essentially made it illegal to sell or produce salt, allowing a complete British monopoly. On March 12, 1930, Gandhi and 78 male satyagrahis started their 23-day-long journey to Dandi, where they picked the salt against law. This marked the beginning of civil disobedience movement. The rich and poor peasants were enthusiastic supporters of the civil disobedience movement, believing that the issue of land revenue will be resolved. But many were disappointed when the movement was called off without any result and later refused to participate. Another important feature of the civil disobedience movement was the large-scale participation of women. Prominent industrialists like G.D. Birla attacked colonial control over the Indian economy and supported the civil disobedience movement by giving financial assistance and by refusing to buy or sell imported goods. The Muslims and the untouchable minorities wanted reserved seats in the legislation. Hence, they became apprehensive about this movement. The experience of united struggles gave people the sense of collective belonging, nationalism. To intensify this feeling of nationalism, the identity of nation was visually associated with image of Bharat Mata. Another means of creating a feeling of nationalism was through reinterpretation of history. Many authors wrote about the glorious developments in ancient times when art and architecture, science and mathematics, religion and culture, law and philosophy, crafts and trade had flourished.